Well, thank you all for coming. This is the first Friday Speaker Series event of this fall. This is the Social Entrepreneurship Center. My name is Evan Deutsch, and I recently started the program and outreach associate for the center. We have a few other staff members here as well. John Isham, our faculty director, is here. Liz Robinson, our program director. Heather Newmark, our associate director. And Marion Osborne, Marion also here. She is our administrator. And so just want to welcome you guys. And I'm going to ask you to please sign in with your name and email on that sign sheet that's going around so we can give you the CSE weekly newsletter to receive updates on opportunities and events like this. So it should be circulated somewhere. But in any case, so this marks the beginning of this marks the beginning of the third year of our Friday Speaker Series. And we try to bring in a variety of social entrepreneurs from different backgrounds. And there'll actually be, these Friday lunchtime talks will be every Friday at the same time in this room unless otherwise noted. So we have a lot of co-sponsorship opportunities this fall, co-sponsor events, so check the calendar for those and make sure those will be great as well. And this week we're really excited to present to you our CSE Summer Grant Recipients. So we have 9 students who completed 4 projects for social change in Swaziland, Chicago, Burundi, and Pakistan. And they'll have a lot more interesting things to tell you than I do, so I'll leave most of the time for them. But without further ado, I want to thank you again all for coming and present to you our first speaker, Gabby Fuentes, who will be talking about her project in Chicago called Project Becoming Pilsen. Thank you.
So I'd like to present to you Project Becoming Pilsen. Before I do so, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you who don't know, my name is Gabby Fuentes. I'm a sophomore here. I'm from Chicago. And I want to tell you a little bit about my upbringing and where I grew up. So I am part of a pretty large, united Mexican-American family. Gatherings with the family usually consist of really, really good food and a lot of dancing. Always dancing. So at an early age, I learned that dancing was a tool to not only express myself, but to kind of be aware of who I was, who I am, a tool of reflection, and also I learned its ability to foster a sense of community. So now we fast forward a little bit to my first semester here at Mid, which is last year. I took my first formal dance class. I grew up dancing with the family and friends and stuff, but never was in a classroom setting where I had actual instruction. So there I met Professor Crystal Brown, and I will elaborate on her role a little later. She's back there. She's awesome. So I met Professor Crystal Brown, and she introduced me to Project Becoming, which is a program that she initiated in New York City, and now it's expanded to North Carolina and now Chicago. So I knew I had always, I wanted to do some type of program with dance, something with my community. A year spent here at Middlebury was a life-changing experience. My freshman year was amazing. It was difficult. It was challenging in the sense that I felt like I was questioning my identity. Who am I? What does it mean to be a woman? what do I like, what do I want to study, just a lot of things. And I knew that people in my community I'm sure they were questioning the same thing. Project Becoming took place in Pilsen, which is a neighborhood on the southwest side of Chicago. It's predominantly Mexican American. It's facing a lot of change presently. It's going through gentrification. I'm sure you guys have heard in the media, Chicago is facing really high rates of violence. So that's something that I kept thinking about throughout my freshman year here. Project Becoming took place in Pilsen, as I mentioned. We partnered with an organization called Mujeres Latinas en Acción, which means Latino Women in Action. And they are located in Pilsen and they're an organization of women serving women. So they serve women in the community facing domestic violence, sexual assault within their households, women that need legal advice, young women in school who need guidance in school, such things like that. And so the organization donated their facilities to us, which was amazing. And we served 13 girls, ages majority 12 to 13. We had a couple exceptions. We had a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old, which was interesting to see their state and development. So many of the participants actually are already involved with the organization, so they come from homes that see domestic violence, sexual assault. Their mothers are seeking help from this organization. So what did the program do? The program was a week long. It's about 20 hours. It's a pilot program. So what do you do with 20 hours with 13 girls? That seems so limiting. So every day we asked the girls a question, and it was kind of a progressive thing throughout the week. So we started off with, who am I? What do I like about my body? What makes me strong? What do I want to become? Who do I want to become? And I'll elaborate a little bit on the difference between what I want to become and who I want to become. So when we initially presented that question to the girls, we were like, oh, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a dancer, I want to be a model. But we started to get a little deeper in the conversation and talk about values and certain aspirations that they wanted to achieve within their own person as an individual. So a lot of them talked about becoming stronger and more independent. And then we capped off the week with, who am I now? So we saw progression throughout the week as the girls reflected on their individual selves. So Professor Crystal Brown actually flew out to Chicago, which was amazing. She trained and facilitated the program. She trained me as well as 3 interns that we hired from Columbia College. Columbia College is a visual and performing arts college in Chicago. And we had 3 wonderful interns. They all have come from really amazing different backgrounds. Here are 2 of them, Jasmine and Cameron. So every day we started off with a question, and we journaled, and then we shared. So we did a couple of workshops such as yoga. And during our workshops, we often talked about sustainability. So after this week-long program, what do the girls have to keep going, right? So the program is called Project Becoming. So becoming being an active verb, something that's, process. So we really wanted the girls to have the resources to keep thinking about who they were, and to keep kind of asking themselves, who do I want to become? Because it's a progressive thing, right? I'm still becoming who I want to become. In 30 years, hopefully I will still be becoming who I want to become, right? Because every day I have a different goal that I keep trying to strive for. So all the girls received yoga mats so that they could take them home, keep doing yoga if they wish, keep doing other things, exercises and stuff. We also did some reflective workshops where the girls shared with us who they think they are as individuals, what their family sees them as, and how the world sees them. So here's probably a better example. So the outer layer has images of how the world sees this one individual. The middle layer is how their family sees them, and then the centerpiece is how they see themselves. So we talked about what the differences mean and how they are striving to kind of represent themselves in their ideal way, and what their relationship is like with their family and the rest of the world. So that activity is called Me in a Box. And those are a couple of the finished pieces. We did body mapping. This was probably my favorite activity. So we paired off and we outlined our bodies, and then we went in and wrote in scars, whether they be external or internal scars. So I put this little scar I have in my hand from my cousin's dog that bit me. And other scars, I shared about my family, about my past and stuff, and so did the girls. It was really, really nice to get them to think critically about their lives and who they are with their past experiences. We also held a workshop where we talked about healthy eating, and all the girls received this recipe book, Healthy Latino Recipes. And we talked about what healthy eating meant to them versus unhealthy eating. And it's interesting to see the disparity in what they thought. Some girls thought that this was healthy versus that, and we talked about the little nuances. And so, for instance, one girl was like, chicken is really healthy for you. And we talked about it depends how it's prepared, right? So if it's fried, it's not as healthy like if you're grilled or something like that. So we talked about that. And we encouraged them to take these home to their family and share them with them. And to also talk about accessibility, right? So I think Professor Crystal Brown set an example like if you have $5 or $2 in your pocket, you want to get some chocolate. Do you get like the Gaiba? No, because that will buy you $2, right? Or do you get like Snickers? And which one is better? Dark chocolate versus milk chocolate with a lot of sugar. So we talked about that. We also have local artists come in. Well, this group, Hello Chicanos. They are folk musicians that perform traditional music from southern Mexico. And these are all teenage girls, many of them are in college. So they talked about what it meant to be a performer and what their role is in the community as a person. They're activists. They try to promote cultural awareness. They promote their art as a way to express themselves and how it kind of helped them get through high school, be in college, and talk about how they represent themselves in their lives. And then before I want to show you a video of the girls because get kind of a visual of what I did in performance. But before I do that, I just want to share with you a couple of the challenges that we had and a couple of the solutions we're trying to implement. So attendance was interesting. We had 13 girls. We were hoping that in the beginning we would have 20, but the 13 actually turned out to be a great group dynamic. Also, a lot of these girls come from households that may not exhibit a lot of support in what they're doing day to day because the parents may be, working full time. A lot of these girls come from families with one parent or with several siblings, so it's difficult for them to have. Sometimes it's difficult for them to have family support. A lot of them didn't have anyone come to the final presentation, and they were okay with it. But it was just interesting to see how they kind of independently find their own resources within the community, and we're hoping that this program helped them keep searching for those resources. The duration, it was only a week long, it was only 20 hours. The questions, who am I, who do I want to become, is something that is a lifelong process. So we're hoping that the girls will, go on and keep achieving and keep searching for who they want to become. We also talked about sustainability. Like I told you, they all got a recipe book, a yoga mat, they all had their little bags and like a journal. They each got an individual journal to keep reflecting on their lives. And we're hoping to create a forum, online forum for them to share, and update how their lives are going. The 3 interns that we hired from Columbia College live in Chicago year-round, so we're in the process of establishing monthly activities for the girls, so movement workshops, discussions, and hoping that next summer we'll have them back to do another, round 2. So I'm going to quickly show you this video, like 2 minutes long. Is that good? Okay, that doesn't make sense. Okay, move on. Alright, if you guys have any questions, we have a Facebook page called Project Becoming Wilson. So please visit it, like it. You can always email me if you have any questions. Thank you.
There's room over here for the standing room folks, if you want to kind of slide on over somehow.
Hi everyone. As you can see, I'm not actually deaf, and I don't have any deaf family members, I don't have any deaf friends, but 3 summers ago I was in Karachi, Pakistan, which is where I'm from, and I fell in love with sign language and deaf culture, because I visited this deaf research center where there were women who were just learning sign language, and I sat down with them and I started signing with them. And they started telling me about their lives. And out of all the conversations that I had with them, 2 things really struck out. One was that they were extremely poor. They were from really poor communities of Pakistan. And the second was that they were not only facing harsh treatment from their families, but also for society. Many of you might have heard the story of Malala, who was shot by the Taliban recently. And as a Pakistani woman, I can tell you it's not easy being a woman in Pakistan. It's definitely not easy being a poor woman in Pakistan. So I just want you to imagine what it's like being a deaf poor woman in Pakistan. I realized that there was a huge problem, that these women were at the complete bottom of the social structure in Pakistan, and there seemed to be absolutely no opportunities for them. For example, after their school, where they were just learning sign language, there was no college which was facilitating sign language for deaf students, so there was no option for them to go to college. All the centers in Pakistan were not employing these people. So when I asked them what they wanted to do in the future, they didn't know. They just said they would be responsible, their parents would be responsible for them, and they would be dependent on their male family members. So I saw a problem, and I like doing computer science, so there was this thing that our teacher told us before we began programming, which was, when you see a problem, you have to ask yourself, can I solve this problem? Can I create a process to solve it? And how well can it be done? So I was sitting in my freshman dorm, and I was thinking, okay, this is a problem that I see, and I don't know what to do about it. But then I thought further, and I thought, okay, I should think of a way to get them financial independency. So they don't have to depend on any other family members or any other male husbands, let's say. And that should enable them to earn a living in Pakistan and have a better life. So I thought about the two things that would be most beneficial for them in Pakistan. The clothing industry is big. Like, it's got a lot of demand and it's doing really well. So I thought of sewing, actually how to sew clothes and how to embroider on them to make them look pretty. I don't know how to sew and I don't know how to embroider, but I thought, okay, maybe I can employ people who can help them do that. And by that, I can also help the employers. But this was all when I saw this development was all 3 years ago. 3 years ago was a very eventful time for me because that's when my family decided to leave Pakistan as well, because the security situation got really, really bad, and they went to Dubai and I went to Hong Kong to study at the UWC there. So convincing my parents to do this project this year was like really, really hard. So we were supposed to talk about challenges in the presentation. Number one challenge, convincing my parents. The first conversation ended with a no, you cannot go back there, like, no way. But I talked to them about it, I tried to convince them, I told them how much I really, really wanted this, and that I won the grant, and how much it's meant to me, and they finally agreed. So second challenge, big one. I couldn't transfer the money to Pakistan because they said there were huge money laundering cases and issues of money ending up in terrorist organizations' hands. So I had to carry it in my pocket. So this is me. I was wearing jeans on top and I had the money in my pocket and I wore this burqa thing on top because I was really afraid someone would cut my pocket and take all the money out. So it wasn't easy. Like getting to the Karachi airport, this is towards the side, but it's a crowded airport. It's insane. Like there's no sense of security there at all. So that was interesting. Now let's go to the actual project. So as I said, I don't know how to sew and embroider. I employed 2 trainers. They were both from underprivileged areas of Pakistan, so they didn't actually have jobs when I employed them. So the project was helping them as well. That's Praveen. She's the sewing instructor, and this is Asif. He's the embroidery instructor. And I learned so much from them. They were amazing people. They taught me about work ethics, about struggling, about working to earn a living, and about helping people. Both of them had siblings who were deaf, so they had basic knowledge of sign language. So they were able to help out with that. Stitching classes. Praveen was, she was good with sign language, she was good with Urdu, but she didn't know how to speak in English or write in English. So I actually helped her out with writing down everything because she could show the girls physically how to do things, but she couldn't document it. And I wanted this project to be sustainable. I wanted it all to be written down, the procedures, how to do cross stitching, how to do mirror stitching, all sorts of things. So we would have classes and I would write it all down all on the board and all the students would copy it down. So that way it was sustainable. Like they still have those books and they can still read all of that. We bought Juki machines, which are stitching machines, so the girls worked on them. We had hand stitching, and as we go on further, you can see the different types of stitching that they learned. The other thing we focused on was embroidery. I actually became a fashion designer this summer. They wanted me to make embroidery designs for them. So I actually love Illustrator and Photoshop. That's what I do on campus. I design posters as well. So I started making designs like that on Illustrator that they could put on clothes, like that one. I designed that one. And so I started printing these out, putting them into files so that they could always keep on using these. Even when I leave Pakistan, I can still keep on using them. And so this is Asif showing the girls how to embroider on, it's called a kameez. It's a long thing we wear in Pakistan. So what was I doing apart from sort of overseeing the project and managing everything? Well, mainly 4 things. One was I was helping the center create a Pakistani Sign Language dictionary. So as many of you know, there is an ASL dictionary, and ASL is very popular. But PSL, which is Pakistani Sign Language, is not documented. It's very it's just signed and not many people know what exactly it is. Parents and children have a hard time communicating with each other. So we were designing a Pakistani sign language. It was very interesting. We were thinking of words, signs for words like terrorism and bomb explosions, not the first things that would come up in other places perhaps. But I sat down with all of them. I talked to them about what kind of signs they were doing at home, because it's obviously hard to design, almost create a new sign language, you know? It's still in the process, and that's what I was helping out with. And this was one of the things. The other thing that I was doing was creating manuals for future use. So this program was for 2 months, from July and August, but I wanted it to be, you know, used in the future as well. So I was documenting everything. While she was teaching, I was going around taking photos and putting all of that into folders. So this is all the procedures, like how do you chain stitch, how do you do a buttonhole stitch, you know, what are laces, like basic things like that, so that they could look at that in the future. As Gabby said, dance is a great way to express yourself, and in Pakistan it's kind of controversial because not a lot of dancing is done, but I love dancing, and I taught them how to dance, and that was really fun. And it's amazing. They can't hear, but they can dance so well. Like, it was just beautiful. They learned so quickly, and it was really good to see that. Wait, I didn't put a slide for that, but I also visited high schools. I visited my own high school. I talked to the graduating class about my experience in the U.S. and apart from the project and my journey, and you know, about the idea of giving back to community. So that was a very powerful experience talking to them about that. But also, you know, last year I attended the Clinton Global Initiative Conference, thanks to the Social Entrepreneurship Center, and also some other conferences related to leadership. And there was a lot of talk about leadership, and it was helpful, but it's not as helpful as being on the ground and getting things done. Like, when I went to Pakistan, these 3 women were at the center. They're all in their 30s, and I'm like 19. So in the beginning, it was hard. My Urdu wasn't that good. I haven't been back for 3 years, you know. It was challenging, but once you get there, you start talking to them, and you really get into it, it just teaches you so much about leadership. It's amazing, like what it can do to your leadership skills. And yeah, like I eventually want to work in the Pakistani government, so I think this was a great way for me to really be in touch with people and figure out how things work, you know, what is really needed, like practical skills needed to have those leadership skills. So in the end, I just want to, I put a slide of what the head of the deaf center said to me, and I didn't want to put it, but then I thought, okay, well, why not? So she said, you were not a sewing and embroidery expert, you weren't a fashion designer, you didn't have any deaf family members or friends, but you came in as a teenager and made a remarkable impact here with a bright idea that shows entrepreneurship, skill, and good thinking. We want to use you as an example for more Pakistani youth to get inspired, to make them realize that you don't need to be an expert in something in order to start a project related to that. So yeah, just want to highlight that again. I really didn't know how to do any of these things, but I saw a problem, seemingly impossible problem with no clear solution, but then thought deeper and I realized that it could be solved. So yeah, thank you. The next presentation will be Trees of Peace, which was done in Burundi by Armel and Betty.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Armel Arnoni Basumba, and I'm class of 2016, and I'm from Burundi, Bujumbura, the capital city, where we had the project.
Hi everyone, I'm Betty Kobia. I'm from Kenya, sophomore, and the reason why I did the project in Burundi was so I come from Kenya, and probably some of you know that we have like very many tribes in Kenya. In total, we have 42 official tribes and some other small ones. And in 2008, when I was still in Kenya, I experienced the worst of tribal conflicts. It was a time when we just had elections, and just because someone from another tribe won the elections, then the other group didn't understand. And it was really bad being, for instance, light-skinned. And for myself, everyone would know that I'm from Eastern Kenya, and from the Western Kenya would probably know that this person is our enemy. And also the fact that myself, I have a name from the tribe in Western Kenya when I'm actually from Eastern Kenya. So that was like, I couldn't say my middle name to anyone, so I had to use my English name all the time. And that was really like tensing, being in your own country and feeling really bad. So having all these tribal problems in Africa, and having a lot of peace projects going on in Kenya promoting peace and reconciliation, I thought we should probably do something else, something like that in Burundi as well. So I'm just going to give a background of why Burundi has some sort of history with tribalism.
Yeah, so as she said, she's from Kenya and I'm from Burundi. As you can see, this really big country in Eastern Africa. So most people hear more about Rwanda, which is here like in the north of Burundi. But Burundi and Rwanda share a huge part of the history. We have the same tribes, we have, we're from the same country, we have literally same everything, same language, same people, culture, landscape, we're basically the same. But because their genocide was slightly bigger than ours, Burundi did not help as much. And I was born in Burundi. I was born in times of war, in times of genocide. And I grew up in that fear of being killed because I'm a Tutsi. You know, I grew up in that fear of, you know, we are in peace now, but what if in the next 20 years the same thing happens again and I lose my whole family, that like the ones that still have left. So as Rabia said, she was sitting in her room, in her sophomore dorm. Me started way back because I went to UWC, Swaziland. I saw how people were interacting and how people from like all the areas could come together and be friends, like no matter all the differences they have together. So I thought there's something I can do. I mean, we are fighting, we have the same language. You know, it doesn't even make sense. So I thought I should just bring students together. We should talk about these things because we don't talk about ethnicities in Burundi. So that's why the project we had is called Twese for Peace. Twese means Kirundi. I mean, in Kirundi it means everyone, so everyone for peace. And we're focusing on the youth. Yeah.
Yeah, and our project was 1 week long. I spent most of my summer here before I went to Burundi. And Amel was in Uganda doing an internship, so we just went there for the project. And then we had 22 students from a pool of 45 applicants. Initially, we had planned to work with 30 students, but due to some financial constraints, we had to cut it down to 22 students, but it really worked out well. And then we had most of the participants were high school students, like the last 2 years of high school, and a few university students, which is kind of a good mix and diversity in ideas and some of the discussions that we had. And the structure of our project was such that we had 2 phases. So one part was focusing on peace building, and the second part was on youth empowerment through entrepreneurship and innovation. And I did a lot on peace building. So some of the things that I talked about was the first day we talked about community building, where we talked about principles of an ideal community that we want to make. And some of the I considered a lot on communication, love and tolerance, and also integrity among people. So we see how that builds up into a community that we all comfortable living in. Another thing I talked about was spheres of peace, and here we had like five things that build up into peace. So we had personal peace and how that builds up into social peace, political peace, institutional peace. And then we also talked about pillars of sustainable peace, where I focused a lot on education and political stability. And so we had a lot of discussions on how can education be a powerful tool for promoting peace among us. how can we transmit education to the illiterate people so that this can be a way of making us live in peace as one community, not as a Tutsi or a Hutu, not as someone from my tribe, which is called Meru or Kikuyu or whatever, just like Burundian, Kenyan, African, whatever. And then we also talked about pillars of. We also talked about how our community is built upon like communal living rather than living exclusively as an individual, and that was really a lot of people were excited about that discussion.
So I was more in charge of the entrepreneurship part. I've always been a leader in clubs, high school, wherever I've always been into something. And when I had to teach entrepreneurship, I was like, so how am I going to teach this? You know, it's more, sometimes it's easier just leave it and do it, sometimes it's just like innate, so you never know how to inspire people. So I had to get manuals, I had to get books, I had to see videos, I had to get trained for it. So one of the interesting books I used was a manual from Babson College in just outside Boston. The manual teaches, it's meant for the youth and high-end university students and teaches them how to start their own business. It can be social business, it can be a money-oriented business. So I used that, and I also used a manual from African Leadership Academy, which is a school that's focused on entrepreneurship and leadership in Johannesburg, South Africa. So what I taught them on the entrepreneurship part was, so how do you generate a business idea? How do you come up with an idea that's going to give you money? But at the same time, how do you use your community as your inspiration? How, instead of seeing problems, you now see opportunity. And how are you gonna come and build up your idea? And from the idea, how do you move from idea to something concrete, meaning what are the steps you have to go through to start your business? What's the logistics you have to get through? What's the marketing? How are you gonna network? Who are you gonna work with? And all those sort of things. And is your business actually innovative enough? Are you sure no one else has done it? Are you sure you actually know your community well to implement what you've done? You know, those kind of things, like a business idea. And it was really interesting because, I mean, I consider myself as an expert right now. I didn't really know I learned myself, and I really thought. And it's really interesting to see how much impact you can do with your leader. You can, like, you think you are just giving like not enough things, but at the end of the day, the impact is huge. Yeah.
Also, I talked them about the process of peaceful conflict resolution. This was kind of hard to prepare for because I didn't know if I should use like my own idea of process of peaceful conflict resolution or from like my past knowledge on peace building and stuff. But I finally ended up coming up with a very good presentation. And I think, and also, we tried a lot to make it not a lecture kind of a training, but we made it like more of like participant involvement and them doing a lot of the work. So we had a lot of small group discussions, like 5 people, 4 people, and that gave an opportunity to most of them to speak among themselves. And we also had presentations from each of the groups. So a lot of people, we had a lot of people actually, most of the people had an opportunity to come to the front and give a presentation about what their group discussed. And we also had a debate on gender disparity, and that was a really interesting debate. Well, it was in French. I don't speak French, but from the people who were interpreting, I think it was a really like intense discussion that got a lot of people. Maybe some of them were just speaking for the sake of speaking, but it was really an interesting discussion to hear like, different ideas of what people think about gender disparities from like their Burundian context.
Yeah, so in the project, it was me and Betty, but I also worked with other Burundians to make the project sustainable enough. So I worked with this student who's called Loïc. He goes to school in ALA, African Leadership Academy. And another girl, Marlene, she goes to Pearson College, UWC. And another master's student who goes to Eastern Maritime University in Virginia, and he's doing conflict resolution, conflict management. And it was actually really interesting because at the end of the week, we had more discussions about ethnicities in Burundi. You know, ethnicities here in America, you guys might talk about being black, being white, being Asian. But for us, you know, because you can tell who's Hutu, who's Tutsi, who's Tutsi, but you don't really talk about it that much, you know? And the reason why we had the project was to break the taboo and to let people, the youth, actually talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it right now, we might want to express our anger or feelings later in the next 20 years, 50 years, and we might use machetes again, as before, you know? So we talked a lot about ethnicities, and it was really incredible and really interesting to see that people actually like stood up and said, I am this, I am Tutsi, I am Hutu, you know, I grew up in this, but I believe that is how we want to do this. How are we going to move for it? And that was a huge success on our side because we actually were able to create that safe space where people made friendships and were free enough to break the taboo, and that was really incredible. I mean, but that didn't come with, we had some challenges that Betty can talk about.
One of the challenges that our facility faced is I don't speak French, as I said before, and French is the official language in Burundi, plus Kirundi, which is kind of close to Swahili, but maybe one word in like 10 sentences. So it wasn't really helping, but I had a student who goes to United World College in Pearson, Canada, and she was my translator, and that really helped a lot in like getting involved and getting to know what is happening. Another challenge was about time overlap. I think we did a good job not being African timers, but we also had times when things overlapped, and we had like some discussion and some sessions running into each other, and others were ending a bit too early, so probably could have like longer breaks than expected. But we kind of ended up doing all that we wanted to do. And another thing about my traveling, it was never really a challenge, but after the project, I went back to Kenya. But I got to Kenya like on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday morning, our airport caught fire. So I just was so lucky that I didn't get stranded somewhere. I don't know where it is happening, but yeah, it wasn't a real challenge, but kind of a challenge.
Yeah, one of the other challenges we had, myself being from Burundi, I had to do more of the logistics part. And because I was doing my internship in Uganda, it was sometimes really challenging to get everything going, getting the place where we had the workshops and coordinating transport, coordinating everything was a little bit challenging, but I didn't have people to work with on the ground. But I mean, it turned out well. I mean, we had incredible week. It was just the most beautiful week I've ever had in my life. Also, yeah. Because originally we had planned to, in the application process, we had planned to involve headmasters, so send out applications to headmasters and they would give it to the students. But actually we used Facebook, and I was personally scared because, I mean, at Middlebury we have Facebook, like Google Doc applications, and you put them on Facebook everywhere. But in Burundi that's still really rare, so I was scared that we're only going to get one applicant or two. You know, we're not going to be able to get everyone, but we got 45, and that shows that actually Africa is working on its technology. I'm really proud of my country. And also, one of the challenges also was, teaching myself entrepreneurship, and it was really great. And at the end of the week, because we taught them entrepreneurship, how you create your own business. It can be a social business or a money-oriented business. So at the end of the week, we had an elevator pitch competition where students actually came up with business ideas. That was one of the ways for us to know that actually what we taught them, they actually internalized it and would come up with their own ideas. And I mean, the one thing I really learned was our job was not, I mean, it was a big job, but we were more just like inspirers, just like inspiring people. And they did most of the job because they came up with ideas. Like the girl who got the first prize, she showed us prototypes of, she makes bracelets and necklaces using plastic bags and beads. It's so beautiful. You never think the plastic bags you get from TJ Maxx or elsewhere. And that was just like one of the ways to see that actually people think they know what's going on in the community. And they want to change things, and they use what they have to actually implement ideas. You know, we had other people, like in Burundi, most of the universities, especially in Middlebury, the capital city where I'm from, most of the universities are in the north, and some students, it's like different from here. You know how here you have like you eat here, for us you go to school and eat elsewhere. You don't live on campus. So he thought of this idea of starting this micro business of providing food to students, like outside, like food, food what you call it, food courts, yeah. But providing Burundian food, you know, not hot dogs or burgers, which is not what we eat. That shows you that people understood that, you know, being an entrepreneur, you don't have to be like Bill Gates. You don't have to be like Mark Zuckerberg. You know, you have to first know what's going on in your community. Your community is your inspiration, and use that, and how do you turn the problem into something conclusive, into like an opportunity for you to make money and solve social issues. And so we had like others came with ideas like having a shop 100% Burundian clothing, because, you know, this is not Burundi, this is so how do we promote our own culture? So it was really incredible.
One of the things I learned during the project was challenging yourself to do things, like new things, is not that bad after all. So most of the works that I did, my part on peace building, most of the workshops I designed them on my own with my own ideas, and that was it took a lot of time, and also because it was summer and you feel like you're on holiday the whole time, so there's a lot of sacrifice, you know, sitting down and like, tonight I have to work on this project, I have to finish this presentation. And it was really nice, like I was surprised at the end, like coming up with 20 slides on something I've never even thought about before, or like a presentation I've never even done before. But it was really exciting to like challenge myself and think critically about if people are gonna like this presentation, if this is gonna be really like valuable to the students. And it was really like learning experience for me. And also it was really good getting good feedback from the students. And yes, but it was kind of perfect. And lastly, but not least, I'd really like to thank everyone who made this project a success. First of all, the Center for Social Entrepreneurship was really good at going to give us the grant, and the people who contributed to our project on Midster, we really appreciate, and for you guys for coming to the presentation.
Really important as an entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur to know the community where you're working, because your community is going to inspire what you do. Like working with the youth, I had to really make it as a fun activity, you know. And so from this, right now we started high school clubs with the universities and high schools. So we're going to carry the same trainings in high schools to like increase the impact. And so the students that participated, they're going to be like heads of the clubs in their own high schools and universities. We already have one club, one chapter at the University of Burundi and another one at the international school. And we have, so at the closing ceremonies, we had the head of the Chamber of Commerce of Burundi, and he came to speak about, you know, how it's important for the youth to be involved in the economical development of the country. Because, I mean, the reason of this project was because we saw that to have sustainable economic development, there has to be sustainable peace. And to have sustainable peace, there has to be sustainable economic development. So they all work together. So, I mean, this is just a start. Just starting, we're gonna be a non-profit soon. And thank you everyone for all the support.
So we recognize you've been sitting down for a pretty long time, so we just get like 30 seconds to stretch for the final plunge.
Adrian
from Hong Kong.
from Hong Kong.
Hello, I'm Roxana, and I'm originally from Uzbekistan.
I'm Ying from Malaysia.
Prestige from Swaziland, but Mom Sola.
Okay, so when we went to rural Swaziland and we asked the schools what do they need, a lot of the principals at the school said desk. So PFH, which stands for Platforms for Hope, was a project founded in 2011 by 3 students in a school in New Mexico. It was then exported to Middlebury in 2012, so last year, 4 of us. So despite the busy schedule of a Middlebury student, we try to meet up at least 1 time a week, maybe sometimes 8 times a week, just get the project running. So we had to work on the structure of PFH. We had to inspire people to fund our project. But I think what was most important was just to get to know one another and to create the dynamic team that we have today. But of course, our team isn't confined to the 4 friends that you see in front of you. We've been so privileged to have the opportunity to work with Andrew Stickney, who was the Vice President of Vermont Center of Emerging Technologies, Emmy Lewis, who works with Teach for America, and Charlie McCormack, right here, who was former CEO of Save the Children. And they were very experienced people in the field and were very great resources for us. We've also had the opportunity to work with the Center for Social Entrepreneurship. They've been keeping us on task and on our feet constantly, and we have a report to give as well at some point.
We know.
So yeah, so before I hand it over to Adrian, I'm just also going to mention that we also had the opportunity to work with 2 amazing young people who were very inspired by our project, and we hired them as interns to work with us. What's his name? Temba, who worked with us over the summer, and we had also Leo, who will be working with us from September to December. And they've been amazing interns, and I'm going to pass it over to Adrian.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for highlighting how important it was to do team building within us, and also to receive such strong institutional support from MCSE for all those contacts that we've been able to make. And my part, I will introduce to you our plan for the summer, what our goals were, and Prestige will later on tell you what we actually achieved, and you can compare. So we had 3 main objectives for the summer. The first being, of course, to produce the lab desks. And we were going to do that by first contacting Mr. Fawe, who is our community partner and also supervisor of the organization which was going to produce our desk, called the High School for the Deaf. And Mr. Fawe is a carpentry teacher himself, and so we thought that by contacting him, we could make sure that he can produce lab desks for us with his students at the school. And once we have our lab desks, we thought we could introduce them to a primary school that we had contacted before. So this would be our pilot program. This was our second objective for the summer. The primary school that we worked with was called Malinza Primary School. And just to give you a sense of place, it's located in the Eastern Dry region in Swaziland. We had originally thought that we could give the lab desks to the school by the second half of the semester, so that they could have enough time to work with them. The Prestige will tell you more what actually happened. And then finally, our third objective was to step back a little bit and to think more about the furniture situation in the schools in Southern Africa. In the summer, prior to the last one, we saw that some schools expressed interest in buying lab desks, but we didn't know if this was the case in other schools. So we wanted to find out whether or not our project would be scalable and could be exported to other schools. So the third objective that we had was to contact more educators in the area and to find out about this furniture situation.
Thank you. So, on the field. Now, the first part was the production of lab tests. Now, what actually happened there? So, the summer of we're now in 2013, I believe, right? So, the summer of 2012, we were in Swaziland and we made contact with Malinza Primary School. And in the first grade, that's the grade they gave us to pilot our project. And they gave us 60 students. So in all our writing, we had 60 students. We come back summer 2013, and now we have 98 students in the first grade. Like, this wasn't exactly the plan. So with the help from the High School for the Deaf, we were able to reach 90 desks by the end of August. By the time August came in, it was already final exam period in the whole country. So the students would not really have an opportunity to be using the desk when the teacher was teaching. So that made us shift our plans, and that goes to phase 2 of students using the desk. Instead of just giving them during the final exam period, we decided to work an entire semester, which is September to December, and that's what we're doing right now. And the next part is interest. Now that's a big one. That was a big one because Swaziland is a small country, 1.2 million people. Not many, the situation wasn't as dire once we were on the ground, because we'd go to a school and they'd say, oh yeah, maybe 20 desks, maybe 60 desks. And so we had an opportunity to go into Mozambique in the province of Gaza, it's right above Maputo, into a school known as Escola Primaria Completa de Chibembe. Now, this is a picture of that school in Mozambique. Now, the situation mostly in Swaziland with that students were sitting on a desk, but here, it wasn't just desk, it was desk and chairs and a solar light. It was a core extension of classroom furniture that they needed. And so that has shifted our talk from saying lab desk as being the solution, but lab desk being the start of the right conversation, hopefully. And then the other really big interest was that, so once we came back from Mozambique, one of our mentors then answered me and says, oh, that's fantastic, you went to Mozambique, lovely country, but you need to focus on Swaziland, and you need to get Swaziland right. So gauge the interest in Swaziland and do that right and do it well. And so the next part was our interns spread out all over the country, and one of my favorite stories is he comes on with an outline of the desk, a paper outline. He meets his principal in an area called Pixby. Principal is like, oh, this is amazing, but I need to see the actual product. So he comes in with, at that time we had around 70 desks. We give him a desk. The following day he's on the bus yet again to see his principal. Principal takes the desk, goes over to the principal's meeting the following week, and shows them the product. And next thing we have are calls, 60 desks, 40 desks, 20. And we're like, this is much more demand than we expected. And so that was the big takeaway from the summer, that we are onto something here. But then we had new issues coming up, such as monetizing. One school could afford to buy the per desk $7. One school could only afford to buy the desk for $4. And that is where we hope anyone who's interested in the project might help us start to have a conversation about how to monetize and sustainability. But yes, that was mostly the summer. Now to summer.
Well, as you have heard from Prestige, we have about 98 desks made by our partners at the High School for the Deaf. We have the desks waiting for the students, and now we have the students who are looking forward to the desks. And now what we need to do is to deliver and distribute the desks among the students in our partner classroom at the Middlebury Primary School. There are 98 students in that classroom with little to no basic infrastructure. They don't have a surface to write on. So now we are equipped with the desks, and we will be able to help them and supply them with the product they need. Second, we want to make sure that we make a positive difference, that this actually works. We have the demand, people are asking for it, but will it actually help to improve the situation of the students? And so with the helpful comments and under the tutelage of Emmy from Teach for America, we found and decided that we also need to work with another person who is really important to the classroom, the teacher. And so we will work in conjunction with the teachers at the Middlebury Primary School and help them to monitor the progress of their students. And hopefully we will be able to find out if our desks have helped the students. And it's a project that is not only in demand, but that actually works. Our experiences at PFH have really taught us that sustainable change does not come easy, nor does it come really fast. But it does come, and we found out that it's with the support of the community. And for us, PFH is a long-term project that is trying to tackle the problem of scarce tools for the students in rural areas. We recognize that this is a difficult problem. Nothing is really easy to solve. but we have been really invigorated by the passionate interest shown by the community, as Prestige has told you before. And we also recognize that as a project, or anything really, you cannot make any kind of change, you cannot really go forward unless you have the support of the community. And we recognize that we need their support, and we also need your support to keep moving forward. So thank you so much for listening to us. If you have any questions, please ask us. And we also have a Facebook, so you can like it and see how we're progressing. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And so, obviously, we wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we are out, but we invite you to actually join us back at 118 South Main Street. So that's, I can actually see it from here. It's a green building down the hill. And all our grant recipients are going to join us there right now in 15 minutes. And if you want to continue the conversation, we want to inform a second. So we invite you all there. And so again, we're past our time, so if you need to leave, by all means, thank you so much for coming. But if there are just a couple questions, I guess we can have a couple minutes of overtime. Or I'd love to hear your thoughts.